You're listening to The Chronomancer and the Book of Worms, Book 1 of The Destiny of the Void Triangle, written by Jason Harrington, narrated by Mason Hamilton. Chapter 2. Ryland remained undetected as he covered the distance in a few steps. He raised the shovel high, but before he could strike, the shaft was caught in a powerful, unyielding grip. Ryland looked up to see a hand as big as his head wrapped around the handle, holding from behind.
"You've a grand heart, Ryland,"
boomed a friendly low voice.
"But you'd better leave this to me."
Ryland was eclipsed in the shadow of a giant, muscled man 4 times as tall as him and 3 times as wide. He wore an oily black leather apron and pants over sweating skin. His back was turned, and Ryland barely saw the few strands of singed auburn hair on his bald head. He raised one scarred and calloused hand to tap the miner on the shoulder, when the miner raised his fist to strike his wife. The miner jumped, startled at the intrusion, and turned around. Without word or further warning, the miner was punched squarely in the face by an arm bigger than the average tree. The miner fell, instantly unconscious before his head hit the ground. Ernick the blacksmith turned away and winked at Ryland with a mirthful blue eye.
"He would have tried to hit me first anyway."
Ryland chuckled. He doubted anyone would have tried to strike the village's beloved smith. Ernick's skills as a blacksmith were without equal for miles. People thought he might have been a smith in another nation. His hands were certainly fast and strong enough for such a career, but he never spoke of it. He refused the better pay and living conditions simply to help the village, where he believed he was needed the most. Ernick's skills were welcomed and appreciated. There was no metal shape he could not craft, and nothing he could not repair. If the smith had the materials, they would all live in cabins and houses instead of hovels and huts. For refusing to sell his skills to the capital, the aristocracy would not allow most iron and metal goods to go to him, so Ernick's help was a meek effort that couldn't improve the village as much as he wanted. He and his daughter Ishel were simply 2 more peasants in the village.
"Ishel has been asking for you, Ryland. I believe she wants another day with you,"
Ernick informed pointedly. Ishel and Ryland were friends almost as soon as they were old enough to walk. They dueled with sticks, chased each other, or attempted to catch fish together. Ryland's days playing might not be frequent, but he did enjoy spending time with Ernick's daughter. It was not a boy's attraction for a young girl, though many villagers thought so. His relationship with her was no more than a close sister, and he liked it that way. "I've got to help Mother and Father with the planting. I've no time for play." Ernick sighed.
"You're a strange one, Ryland. You know Kylor and Liane don't demand this of you."
Ryland nodded, but didn't say he believed his youthful energies were invaluable for the farming effort.
"At least come to my forge when the sun is high. Ishel will be there, and you could give her a greeting."
Ernick paused to examine Ryland's spade and hook.
"You'd better come over anyways. By the looks of it, the lords have found a loop in the king's orders again. Honestly, wooden pegs at the base of the metal? It'll be a wonder if they last the day. Tell Kylor to be gentle with them until I get a moment with them."
I will return when the sun is high," Ryland promised before he turned away, beginning his run to the fields. Ryland spared no thought for the growing cemetery this time. He possessed no spare movement for anything but his pumping legs and his farming burden. He was a fast runner, and he covered the distance fairly quickly, leaping and ducking in the woods without slowing his pace. Ryland didn't realize how unusual he would appear, running at almost a blurring speed as he effortlessly navigated the dense woods. Within minutes, Ryland stood in the fields and searched for his mother and father. He began to steady his breathing when he spotted his father's long, wild brown hair and his dirty brown clothes. His back was turned so he didn't see Ryland approaching. Ryland didn't see his mother immediately, but as he drew closer, he saw her sitting down in the tall grasses. They were both almost stick-thin figures. His mother was a woman of very graceful beauty that rivaled the highborn ladies. She was clearly the source of his shining black hair, though hers was tied behind her neck before it fell to her lower back. Her brown patchwork dress covered a petite body shape that had once been slender and curved. Her dark skin was marked with labor scars, and her hands were calloused. His father's shape told a very similar tale. His labors forced him to keep some of his younger muscles. His scars and his deeply sun-browned skin were a reflection of his work. His drooping clothes and drawn-tight skin attested to starvation and sacrifice. "There was no need to rush, Ryland. The spring has only begun. You could have greeted your friends." Kylor laughed and smiled warmly. "There is too much to be done." Ryland shook his head. "I'll give it my all now. We need not starve this year."
If we make more, they will simply take more.
Liane reminded.
Don't ignore your friends to work pointlessly.
Ryland knew she was right, but he thought they could hide a greater portion of their farmed rewards. He thought it might be possible to talk the village into creating a hidden food cache. Let me help today, Ryland pleaded. Ernik wants to make the spade and hook stronger tonight. When I bring them over, I will tell Ishel I will spend tomorrow with her. Just let me help start the planting. Kyler and Liane shared a considering gaze before Kyler answered.
I suppose there is no talking you out of this, is there?
Ryland shook his head fervently. His father sighed.
Very well, but only if you spend the morrow being your age.
I will, Ryland promised before he picked up the shovel and began spearing and turning the soil around them. Ryland's father followed behind him, breaking the clumps into soft soil while his mother pulled the unwanted grass, tossing it aside. Ryland thought they could accomplish so much simply because they were a united family in their task. Hours passed without notice, and the area they tended grew. The seeds continued to wait for their places in the earth. But Ryland's mother and father would see to that when he returned to the village. He could hear and feel the wood groan at the base of the metal, threatening to crack. It was just as Ernik warned, and Ryland made sure to apply careful pressure. When a cool spring breeze caressed his sweating skin, Ryland looked and noticed the sun found the center of the sky. A lot of work was complete, but it was not as much as he had hoped for. Regardless, Ryland gathered the hoe and shovel after sharing a brief farewell with his mother and father. Ryland returned to the village and Ernik's forge within an hour. Ishel sat waiting on a makeshift stool, a safe distance from the forge, kicking her bony legs with boredom. Her light brown hair fell to her shoulders, tangled with bits of straw. Her hazel eyes rolled with impatience. Her father was dirt-streaked and lightly sun-darkened. She drummed her fingers to the sound of Ernik's loud, clanging hammer until she saw Ryland standing in front of her. Instantly, her small lips unpursed from a scowl and burst into a cheerful smile.
You're late,
Ishel chided. Ryland shrugged but said nothing in his defense.
When spring came, I wanted yours to be the first face I saw.
Ishel pouted. Don't be such a girl about it, Ryland teased. Anyway, you know the first day of spring is the hardest labor of the season. My ma and da will have aching backs for days without me.
If you want to help them so much, then come with me to the river. You can come tomorrow, can't you?
Ryland remembered his promise to his parents and nodded.
Good. Then we can catch lots of fish and our families can eat well.
We don't always have the best luck with fish, Ryland reminded her.
Tisk.
Ishel wagged her finger at him.
I have a plan. The fish don't stand a chance.
Cooked fish does sound like a great meal,
Ernik chimed in from his forge.
I'll catch a big fat one for you, father.
Ishel vowed, drawing a low chuckle from Ryland. Ryland continued to plan with Ishel, while Ernik improved the tools. He had to admit to himself, it was good to speak and laugh with Ishel after the long isolation of winter. It made him look forward to spending the day together. As Ryland gave the forge a cheerful wave farewell, he allowed himself to bask in the thoughts and memories that gave him the most pleasure.